surprised me was that the love story that was apparent on that was between John and Paul.
Yes.
Like it was, okay, brotherly love, but like so the highest form of brotherly love and creative competition, and like that was kind of the really pleasing thing about it. I also liked, the nice little moment between John and Linda. Linda McCartney and
Linda's so beautiful.
yeah. Oh yeah, excuse me. Yeah, well, I had a massive crush on Linda McCartney when I was a kid. Because she used to come to Liverpool a lot, and the Royal Liverpool Hospital is an entire wing, the breast cancer unit that she funded herself with her own money, and so she was always in Liverpool, and she was. I would say she was more glamorous in real life than what the camera picked up. If that makes sense.
Natural beauty. Don't you
she
think?
Literally like a Golden Globe there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. Whenever I've seen pictures of her, and I remember interviews, and people would get on her because she had a British accent. Well, it happens,
Yeah.
She hung out with Paul all the time, and so it happens. It would happen to me. So
yeah.
And I remember her being in a.
Well, you're from Liverpool anyway, Amy, as we've established. So
I think I was. Well, I told you that time when I sang and I was 13, and everybody's like, "Why does she have a British accent?" Now I didn't even know. I was doing it. I thought, and I will.
There you go.
When I'm thinking about the Beatles a lot or John a lot, I do go into a British accent, and I don't even realize it. So I have to stop myself. Anyway, I have Linda's book. I bought this. Gosh.
Oh, really?
Some big bookstore a long time ago, but one of her vegan books.
Right. Yeah. Oh, that looks good. Yeah.
Good book.
Yeah. She did. She was. It was at the time. The vegetarianism thing was kind of frowned upon, and she undoubtedly she was. Her and Paul were one of the sort of the most important factors in it becoming accepted. And it wasn't just like kind of a hippie thing. It was like there was logic to what they were doing and stuff, and I thought that was really, really cool.
Well, I know we're going to have such a varied thing today, so let me go into my whole Paul and Linda thing real quick since we're talking about them. So
okay.
I kind of did a channeling of Linda last year, and I wanted to know what it was like when she met Paul, and some of it I already know, so that kind of mars thing, and a lot of it I looked up afterwards, so it's like all imprinted in me now. But what I saw was that she was there in London taking pictures of different bands. And I think the Rolling Stones, she took a famous picture of Brian Jones. Well,
that's right.
Brian Jones was like forefront. And Brian Epstein, the Beatles manager, saw it and was like, well, rang her up like, I'd like you to take some pictures of the Beatles. And I don't know which event she was at, but she was with another group in England. Probably wasn't the Rolling Stones. It was someone else. Can't remember.
Yeah.
Anyway, she's at a bar.
What it was.
Yeah, I can't remember. It wasn't the Animals or.
I think it was the Animals, wasn't it? Yeah.
It could have been. It was someone like that. So.
Because.
The Bag of Nails or whatever,
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And Paul keeps seeing her, and then at the time he was dating Jane Asher, but it kind of in and off, on and off. So he sees Linda and he's like, wow, she's really beautiful. Plus, she's professional and she's a woman. She's not a little girl. She's a woman. And he stands up when she's going to go to the bathroom and sort of blocks her way. And he kind of does it obviously on purpose. And, hey, what's your name? Blah, 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 and gets her to go with him afterwards. And so, yes, that first night they did see something in each other. And they did have sex. And I think they probably smoked pot and dropped acid that night. And that whole thing where they dropped acid together was like, whoa. But he still had Jane.
That was the catalyst.
Girl. Yeah. And so she goes back to America. No, okay. So they see each other a week later at the Sgt. Pepper release at Brian's apartment. And you see that famous picture of her taking Paul's picture, and he's kind of like this, He's really looking at her. And,
he's contemplating.
Yeah, he's contemplating. And he is almost on the outs with Jane Asher at the time, and he's already dating other people, but he's not ready. Paul always said, I'm not ready to get married. He doesn't really want to get married. So Linda goes back to America, and in that time, Paul, John, and, the band, they all do. Brian dies. Brian dies, and then they're all doing the stuff with the Maharishi. That's important. And the White Album was important. And Paul wrote all these songs and had to assess his life, do all this meditation, get off all the heavy drugs and everything, because otherwise it could have been really bad. They had to do this meditation thing. It saved John too. It saved John for sure.
Yeah.
And so then when they went to America to promote Apple, the boutique, the new record company publishing all of that.
Yeah.
Then he saw Linda again, and it was like, well, we'll never be apart again. It was almost like that. We'll never be apart again. So they both needed that. She had to go back and take pictures of Jimi Hendrix and Janis Joplin and get her career going. And then when they came together, it was the right time. But that's what. Oh, and the other thing. Go ahead.
Sorry, Amy. I didn't mean to talk over that. Yeah, I can remember in one of the biographies, Paul speaking to the author. Oh no, someone was speaking to the author about Paul had told him that like Linda was the first person, not just male or female, but the first person that he felt comfortable crying in front of.
Wow.
He'd been storing up all this grief since his mum died, and he'd been putting it to the back of his mind and getting on with being a Beatle and that. And I think it was the Beatles breaking up was the catalyst that finally broke him emotionally. Yeah. And she was able to say to him, it's completely normal what you're going through, and don't feel ashamed if you've got to cry, if you've got to get this out your system, And it was, I think that was one of the things that he fell in love with the most, was that she was nurturing and like
she's a very natural
she was just
person.
Yeah, definitely. She was kind of like the same sort of strong personality that his mother had been, and there was echoes of that. And but yeah, she was really beautiful, and like I said, there was she had like a movie star kind of allure to her. When you'd see her in the city and stuff.
Well, I thought of something, and that was that Paul got in trouble for the acid. And remember the whole interview of you weren't supposed to print that. You weren't supposed to print that I took acid. I told you not to print that, so it's your responsibility because I wasn't promoting it. And he got in a lot of trouble, and it was almost like John's Jesus comment, really. And and he called her, and she said, "It's just acid." Or something like that, it's going to be fine. They'll catch up to it. She really comforted him. Like you said, she had that sort of like, it's okay. You didn't do anything wrong. It's like, I've had acid. We're all out in San Francisco. Everybody's doing it, and so she really gave him that confidence and comfort of that he was safe with her.
Which he undoubtedly wasn't he? He wasn't like, I remember that. Well, just to go back now, John's Jesus comment.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know whether we've discussed this before, but it's a very Liverpudlian thing to say, bigger than Jesus. It's kind of, sometimes it's used to put people in the place. Like if someone says, if someone's bragging about what they've done, I've done this and that, people, oh, well, you're bigger than Jesus now, aren't you? It's done sarcastically, but also it's the other way as well. Like, my God, you're like, it's unbelievable. You're bigger than Jesus now. It was a very kind of colloquial Liverpool thing to say, turn a phrase. And that even though even there was vitriol in what John said and why he said it, it's like most people from outside of Liverpool, especially then, wouldn't have understood, where he was coming from, and
that's interesting. Well, when John said that, the problem is that with the religious right, that they're taught complete obedience or they'll go to hell. So when somebody else says something like that is meant to just free you from religion and that sort of dogma, and give you a little bit of personal freedom, which is healthy actually, to have that mind, get your mind out of the religious mind control and think for yourself. And then you can come back to it and be like, okay, here's my new perspective as me, not what I've been taught, but as me. Well, when John said something like that and it was taken the wrong way, pretty much by America, not England, but it was mostly the religious right in America. The problem is what it does is, and we didn't know the context, but it triggers people's fear that they're not loyal to God and that they're going to go to hell and they're bad people and they'll be rejected from the pack and all of that sort of mentality. So what John did was he tried, in a way, he didn't know he was doing it, but freeing people from that dogma and the mind control. So they could still come back to it, but as their own self, would be empowered. But people saw it as, you know, him dragging them to hell, right? You tempt her trying to make us be bad, and
yeah. I love this quote right now at the apology he gave at the press conference, where he said something like, "If it said TV was bigger than Jesus," he said, "I might have got away with it."
Yeah.
Which, so that's brilliant, that, because he was on TV at the time that he was saying it.
Yeah, I mean, it's true, and he was really talking about rock and roll and how it was.
It was like a sort of like double kind of, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and sorry, I went for a second there, Amy. So didn't really notice. Oh, sorry. Yeah, see, it's not my head as well. It's not a toupee, although it does look. God, it does look a bit like one. Do you ever see Never Say Never Again?
Never Say Never.
Yeah, did you ever see Never Say Never Again?
Yeah, I think so. Was that the one with?
Have you seen Kim Basinger and
probably
what's his name? Klaus Maria Brand. Sean Connery, but he's got the worst toupee that you've ever seen in your life in that film. In fact, it keeps changing colour throughout the film. So obviously they were going through a few of them until like they settled on, you know, when that was right. But that's what it looks a bit like. But my hair is real, so the gingerness comes out as well.
I don't really notice, but why'd you now say why you had to get it cut, or can you say?
Yeah, I'll say. Okay, right. So I'll tell you now, Amy, because I haven't told you the details. Right. So I got a last minute casting for a Lion Bar commercial, and it was they'd been filming last week, then they stopped for a week, and then they're picking it up next week to resume filming. And the person who they got to play the part that I'll be playing. Well, I'll tell you what happens is in the advert itself, it's kind of, the Lion Bar is kind of like Popeye spinach. So there's all these things where, like, there's kind of the scene that I'll be doing. It'll be a 10-year-old boy in a boxing ring with boxing gloves, and he's like cowering, he's scared, and there's going to be this big 6-foot boxer in the other corner of the ring, and he's panicking, and his manager gives him a Lion Bar which he bites, and then he'll turn into me, and then he'll have the confidence to go and do the fight. And then there's like variations on that. There's like a little girl at a catwalk who's too scared to go on a catwalk, and she eats one. And then there's something to do with the army. But basically, the actor that they got didn't match. It doesn't really matter, so I don't know why they were kind of, frivolous with this. But the actor that they had to play the adult version didn't match the actor who they've already filmed the kids scenes with. So they had to let him go. They've paid him, and I match it better than what he did, so I've come in to do it. So that's why the director wanted me to get my hair cut short to make me look more like a boxer, because with me my frosted hair like last week and all that, it just wouldn't have, in a boxing ring, it just wouldn't have looked right. You know what I mean? So I thought, like, maybe I had to get into make myself look a bit more thuggish, perhaps, and stuff like that. So that's why I've had it cut short. How does it look, Amy?
It looks fine. You're all.
Thanks. It is fine. Yeah, fine hair.
It looks good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah, it came completely out of the blue, the commercial, and it's apt as well because it's a nice little nest egg in time for Christmas. You know, so it's like well paid, and plus I'll be getting a commission from it as well. So I couldn't do pantomime this year because of my mum's situation. I normally do up until before the lockdown. I've done pantomime every Christmas. Yeah. Pantomime. It's like the big sort of family Christmas show. I've done it like every year for about 10 years, and then lockdown kind of stopped that. And then I got into caring for my mum, so I wouldn't have had the time to rehearse a pantomime and then be away to do it on Christmas Day and stuff. So.
Yeah, I understand that.
And the worst things about that is financially you kind of lose out because it is lucrative. And so this came at the right time. This commercial come just at the right time. It's like a nice little nest egg of money for me to kind of to enjoy Christmas with.
Oh, nice, cool. And yeah, so that'll be fun. And what was I going to say? So also, can you talk about the other thing that you have, that the Robin Williams? You don't have to if you can't.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'll talk about the Robin Williams thing. Yeah. So last week I met a director called Lee Craig, who's I knew him a bit because he works for BBC Manchester, and he mainly specialises in sitcoms and things that are produced by BBC Manchester. And I went to meet him. I did a radio interview last Friday, about the Carry On films, and he invited me along to talk about the Carry On films, Radio Merseyside. So I went along, but he had the agenda, and I didn't know it when I went, that he's got this project. He wants to do a tribute to Robin Williams for next year for the 10th anniversary of his death. And he asked me to do it, and it's going to be it'll be a one-man show production, but I'll go through like 4 phases of Robin Williams' career. So there'll be like more Good Morning Vietnam kind of. I think it's Aladdin and then something else. So it'll be like 4 like equal parts in that, and that'll be done on stage with an audience, but at the same time it'll be streamed live to YouTube at the same time, just to give it that kind of like sitcom feel. So that is quite daunting now. Because Robin Williams was just a force of nature. He was this kind of, he was just an absolute whirlwind of creativity and humour and funniness, and he was, I'd say, a genius. And at the same time, he could break your heart as well. Films like Dead Poets Society and Good Morning Vietnam, Good Will Hunting. And then, I don't know, did you ever see that film Insomnia, the Christopher Nolan film?
I don't think I'd have. I don't think so.
But he played a paedophile serial killer, didn't he? And he was Al Pacino was a cop trying to find him, and he was an absolute revelation in it. Robin Williams. It was like probably that kind of the peak of his career at that point. It wasn't perhaps the most financially rewarding film he ever did, but he got the best reviews. He probably should have been Oscar nominated for that. So I'm flattered that they've asked me to do it, and I'm going to do it. But at the same time, it is daunting. It's good that I've got kind of like a 6-month run in to do it, because I'll be able to do the appropriate amount of research and kind of preparation to take on not only his characters but him himself as well.
So I'm assuming that you belong to like an acting union, or do they have that in England? Like you do? Yeah. I'm with Equity, and I'm with SAG as well, the Screen Actors Guild, and you more or less. It's strange because you have to be invited, but at the same time you have to kind of push for it. It's kind of like a vicious circle, like kind of thing. But it helps if you're a member of Equity or the Screen Actors Guild. It helps you in one sense to get parts, but also, financially it helps you as well, because you're not going to get you're not going to get messed over by anyone, because if that was to happen, Equity could just step in and kind of sort things out. So it's, like I say, really exciting and flattering, but at the same time it's terrifying as well, which I think is a good reason to do it, because I think when you stop feeling emotional, when you stop feeling an emotional sort of pull artistically to something, I think that's when you should stop, because your enjoyment has obviously gone from doing it. And I suppose it's like playing Robin Williams for me will be like bungee jumping or kind of or skydiving, that kind of So I'm really excited about it. At the same time, it is. Thanks, Amy. Thank you. You did say you thought something was going to turn up for me, and 2 things happened. So there you go. Yeah, I totally.
You are a Wonder Woman.
I kept getting that about you. I kept getting that you had I said star quality, but that there was something big in your aura, and I didn't know that you'd done any like films or TV shows or anything. I just knew that you taught acting, but I didn't know your background. So I kept getting that, and I was like, you need to hang in there because something big's going to happen. So I'm really happy for you. I think that's wonderful. I feel like you're deprived a bit, that you haven't done anything lately. So.
Well, thank you. That means a lot. It's good to have your support, and like I say, your support has helped me as well, because just like most actors, really, like kind of self-confidence issues can kind of, and I know it sounds kind of egotistical, but it is always good to have anyone support you to say, no, this is a good idea, because it's such a sort of high wire acting. So I appreciate your support there, and keeping me positive about it, because I could just have easily walked away from it, you know what I mean? But I stuck in because of your good advice.
Keep going. Keep going.
So you mean keep talking now, or
no? Stay here. I was going to say it's interesting about Robin Williams because a lot of psychics or psychic mediums or whoever, people in the spirit community, feel connected to him, feel like he's a very strong presence for like a teacher, and have connected with him and tried to channel him. And when he died, this happened when Amy Winehouse died too. I remember sitting on my back steps and feeling very down, and I'm like, oh my God, why am I so sad tonight? Why am I so sad? Both times. And the next day I woke up and found out they had died. And I still find that interesting that I sort of picked up on that sadness in the universe of these people passing.
That is interesting. I mean, that's what I would say. I mean, I've had some kind of connection to Robin Williams in my life in the past. Mm-hmm. I was actually watching Popeye when I found out that that he died. I was watching a VHS copy of it, and my mum actually told me Robin Williams. She said Robbie Williams, the singer from Take That.
Yeah.
So I checked. It was actually Robin Williams, and it was a shock at first, but then almost immediately it was reported that it was suicide, and that just made it kind of even more kind of. It's interesting, right? His best friend and his soulmate, as you probably know, Amy, was Christopher Reeve.
I was going to say he was friends with Christopher Reeve and Andy Kaufman. Did you know
That's
that?
right, yeah, he was, yeah. And, well, do you know that story about when Christopher Reeve was, like not long after his accident, he was like spaced out. He was like, it was snowed on all like medication and stuff. And this like strange Hungarian doctor came in, and he had the mask on and stuff, and he started saying, like, we're going to have to give you a proper exam and all this and that, and we come up with all this jargon, and eventually Christopher Reeve realised that it was Robin Williams, and he laughed, and that was the first time he's laughed since his accident, and he said he just knew then, Christopher Reeve said, that everything was going to be all right. It said like his job was to adapt to his kind of situation, but he still had good friends like Robin Williams who were going to be there for him. The reason why I'm bringing that up is because the sad thing is Robin Williams didn't have his own Robin Williams, if that makes sense. He had no one, who could come and cheer him up, that kind of thing, or like Christopher Reeve had gone at that point, so obviously he couldn't reciprocate what Robin had done for him. I think like when he died, it was like a huge part of his life had gone, because they were like brothers. They'd been at Juilliard together, and you're like soulmates, if anything.
Yeah, it's too bad. It's what can you do? There's just some people where it feels like and sounds like he fought it for a long time. And
hello, Coco.
Yes, Coco. There she is.
Hello, Coco. I've got my eye on you, Jamie. That's just, I'm watching you. She's beautiful.
Thank you. Well, so I guess we were going to talk about Christmas stuff. So we
okay.
So in England, you guys don't always call it Christmas, do you? You call it Yuletide or?
Oh, yeah. Or they spell it with an X. Is that the same in America? Xmas. Yeah.
That's in America. That's almost like sacrilegious because you're not using the word Christ. So. Yeah, I know.
It's yeah, and some people think Santa Claus is an anagram of Satan, don't they? It's like. Yeah. It's that's a strange one. But the thing is, in Britain, it goes on for 2 weeks, which is, it is like kind of the whole 2 weeks. Like, like people, school breaks up for 3 weeks and stuff, and people have like 2 weeks leave for Christmas and stuff. Is it like that in America, or is it pretty much just Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, and then it's done?
No, they get like the kids will get off probably the week before Christmas, and I guess that gives them time to travel. So and the teachers need a break, I suppose. So yeah, a week off before. And then after New Year's, a couple days after New Year's is when they go back. So they get like 2 weeks, pretty much.
All right, so roughly the same kind of. Here's a question then: what's the music charts like in America at Christmas? Is it kind of, or in the past has it been kind of? Is it filled with like novelty Christmas songs, or is it others? Because that's what happens over here, and it's so annoying. It's like the top 10 are all like kind of, Christmas songs like Slade's "Merry Christmas Everyone" and stuff like that. And I was just wondering, is it the same in America, or is it?
It must
that
be.
Less so over there?
I haven't really looked at the charts. I used to look on Rolling Stone a lot, but I haven't really looked at the charts. But I did see that Brenda Lee, "Rocking Around the Christmas Tree" is like the number one hit right now. So that's like a big thing where Brenda Lee, she's like 90 or something, or I don't know what she is, but
brilliant.
Mariah Carey, of course, they play that all the time. So my local oldie station, which to me oldies is like 50s, but they play 70s, 80s, 90s. It's like, damn, okay, so that's old now. So they turn all.
I know what you mean. Yeah. 80s still seems futuristic. I think 80s music and that. I know what you mean. 50s could just be the 20s, couldn't it? Just on that, talking about Brenda Lee going to number one. Do you know that? I don't know if you know this. You know when Margaret Thatcher died? Do you know this?
No.
When she died, Margaret Thatcher, "Ding Dong, the Witch is Dead" got to number one in England. From The Wizard of Oz. It was the most downloaded song.
Oh my gosh!
Because people were so glad.
Yeah, that's so funny. In America, we thought Margaret Thatcher was great, but every British person I've ever talked to hated Margaret Thatcher. I'm like, okay, that's much different. But you all love Diana, so I find that interesting. You all love Diana. Yeah.
I can understand the love for Diana. I can't understand. Well, I mean, I have to talk with my Liverpool hat on here, Amy. But basically, she wanted to abolish Liverpool, which is very Hitler-esque and Nazi-esque. She wanted to sell 75% of Liverpool to North Wales and the rest to Manchester. So obviously it would have still been on the map, but it would have been, it wouldn't have been Liverpool anymore. And the reason she did that was because no one in Liverpool were ever going to vote for her, because it's a Labour vote, and because it's a working class place. And but apart from that, she just did some very questionable things over the years that that was suspected by a lot of people, not just in Liverpool but in Britain, and came to light after she died, and had already been suspected. But anyway, let's not talk about the devil. It's nearly Christmas, and she might just appear behind me, so it would be a fate worse than death.
Well, when the Queen died, and then people that did not like her, which I understand why people wouldn't like her, especially Irish people, for sure. But I always thought is interesting, and I shared her birthday for the day, April 21st, and so I have like that weird connection with that Queen energy, and so I always I admired her, Anyway, when she died, and then there was a comet. Do you remember the comet that showed up and it streaked through the sky?
Oh yeah.
And there's these people said online, "She's back. Oh no, the bitch is back." And I was like, damn. Did not like her.
But she was ascending to something else physically, and I like the other one was Winston Churchill. He was a horrible. He was. I mean,
John's mother
obviously
loved him.
Oh yeah, well that's surprising, that, because if in London, I don't know if you know this, in London, I think when he was Prime Minister the first time, in London in the 1920s, the dockers went on strike, and Churchill set the armies on them, literally got the armed forces to go and people died. I'm laughing. I'm not laughing because they died. I'm just laughing at the sort of the atrocity of kind of he's seen as this big hero, but he was just he was just as shallow as the rest of them, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. John's mum did have a touch of patriotism there by calling him Winston.
Yeah, it happens.
Yeah.
I find that funny. It's interesting, but okay. So I'll tell you a story that I know about Christmas. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that. Let me get back to it. Do you reckon that this year, the Christmas #1? The reason I asked that, do you reckon this year the Christmas #1 will be Mull of Kintyre, Paul McCartney, because Danny Lane died, and they think it's going to be. They're thinking it's going to be re-released because to sort of commemorate the passing of Danny Lane, and they reckon that might get to #1. It's still like it was like the biggest selling single in Britain.
Wow.
Mull of Kintyre of the 70s. It was like a huge.
I love that song in London Town. It was the album. I had that CD, and I listened to it a lot.
Oh yeah.
It probably will in England, but not in America, because we're so thick with things like Taylor Swift, who I respect. I don't like her music, but I respect her.
Oh
and
God.
Then Mariah Carey, you know. So yeah. It's probably not going to happen here in America, but in England, yes.
Oh yeah, no, I don't think that song was ever big in America anyway, was it? Mull of Kintyre. I think it was because it's like it's a Scottish Hogmanay New Year's Eve kind of anthem. So I can't really see it catching on in it. But over here, it was like I think the biggest selling single of the 60s was "She Loves You," and then the biggest selling of the 70s was "Mull of Kintyre."
Oh wow!
And apparently John hated it, didn't he?
Well, probably because he probably thought it was supposed to be like give peace a chance. He probably thought that. You know how John would do this, like, oh, they copied, you know. And in a way, that's kind of what that was, if you think about it. It was an anthem.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and it is kind of, now you come to mention it, it is a more slowed down, like kind of soupier version of Give Peace a Chance, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Sorry, Amy, I interrupted you before when you were going to say something.
Oh, okay. So I love Christmas. And like, you know, my dad wouldn't let us have a Christmas tree and all that. So I've always loved Christmas trees and everything about Christmas. But I also love everything, you know, whatever. If it's Kwanzaa, if it's Hanukkah, I love all that tradition too. I just like all the, you know, everything. So anyway, but people will argue with you and say that Christmas is that Jesus was born, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, well, I believe in Jesus and all that, but Christmas is actually from a pagan tradition. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Okay. The solstice is around the 21st.
Yeah.
And the tree is from the trees out in nature and, you know, things like that.
Right.
The berries and the holly berries and all the tradition of the pagans. And then apparently the pagans would go around and be wild and steal stuff and burn things and all that. And so people were like, so that they won't rape and pillage, we're going to leave little gifts for them on our doorsteps. And then they're like, hey, gifts. And that's literally how Christmas was born. But
that's how it.
Yeah.
That's incredible, isn't it? That it just shows you the marketing potential in anything. You know. Yeah. Was that a bark there, Amy?
Yeah, Julia just came home. Hi, Julia.
Oh, right.
I'm in here. So.
Hello, Julia. I'm over here.
Julia, how'd it go? Oh, she has to go back to school. She, like you, has an acting thing, but in school, her final, she has to do a monologue. So I guess it didn't happen yet, and she still has to go back and do that. So interesting.
Right.
I'm working on it.
Well, best of luck to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, Amy,
go ahead.
Oh no, carry on. Go on. Sorry.
What were you going to talk about? How about tell me about Christmas traditions in England, like foods and TV shows and things like that.
Okay. Well, we mentioned a bit in the email, but I'll bring it up again. Are you familiar with Morecambe and Wise?
Yes. Yes, I've seen that clip, but not the whole one. You sent like an entire show. I've never seen the entire show.
Yeah, they had a show called Two of a Kind, and that's what the Beatles were on then. I Creature of Heather. I salute it. Yeah. Anyway, so Morecambe and Wise. Yeah. Hello, Julia. That was here, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Hello. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, do you need to do something, Amy? Or like, do you want me to carry on talking? Hello.
I'd like a plate with like
Oh,
part somewhere.
but it wasn't. Was it in here? Is it in your bed? I didn't see it. She has her play that she has to. Life.
Like
Okay, Malcolm and Wise. Morecambe.
Morecambe, yeah, Morecambe and Wise, yeah. Eric Morecambe and Ernie Wise.
Yeah.
That is one of the sort of the biggest traditions even though he's been dead 40 years and Ernie Wise has been dead for 25 years. That was the biggest Christmas tradition in England in the 70s and 80s. It was the other an hour-long Christmas special every year that went on BBC One, and the entire nation after more so in fact in the Queen's speech, which is every year. It was every Christmas Day for 20 years. The nation would come together to watch these specials. And hello.
I think it's here.
Yeah.
She's looking for something. She can't find. I don't see it here. I know it's pink, but I don't see it. Anyway, okay. Let me ask you this. Okay. So what?
Yeah. I said, yeah, concentrate. Your family mum's the TV remote the other day. So yeah.
So, okay. So in that show, when they talk, and we were talking about how cute John is in there because he looks like a little boy. He's laughing, and not everyone could make him act like that.
Yeah.
He's just.
Oh, it's amazing that. Yeah, it's.
Yeah.
His reaction to it. Yeah, it's like John's enthusiasm's infectious, isn't it? When you see him laughing at Eric Morecambe, it's a brilliant line for the start. Because Eric Morecambe was kind of the British Groucho Marx. It's like he was super. He was like sort of lightning and quick with his wit, and you can tell it's an ad lib. It wasn't in the script. When he says to John, he goes, "I was like, what's it like being famous?" And John says, "Well, it's not like in your day, And you can tell Eric Morecambe's taken back a bit, but then John says, he points to the ground. My dad used to tell me about you, and he comes off the script again, Eric, and says, "Oh, you only got a little dad, have you?" It's just like a really funny Scouse kind of interaction that people wouldn't see at that point, and that would be kind of the first glimpse of it. But yeah,
go ahead.
Look, carry on.
Well, plus they did some songs, and which was amazing. And then I think there's one point in the interview when they say something about John's mom, and John says nothing because obviously his mom is already gone at that point, and it's kind of like, ooh, but he and Paul never say anything, like they don't really react. But it was like, oh, ouch, that type of thing.
Yeah. I know what you mean. It's kind of under the surface somewhat, isn't it? And on that subject, Amy, we'll get back to Christmas, but don't you think that's another beautiful thing that John and Paul had? That kind of, they both lost their mothers. So, any psychiatrist looking at it, all right, they wrote love songs to the sort of the mythical kind of love that they wanted to find, but they could just as easily been talking about the mother. When songs are like geared towards, which I'm sure they were on lots of occasions and stuff, and information's never come out about it. But I'm sure songs where that people assumed were to so the dream girls or the other girlfriends or whatever, they're actually singing to their own mothers.
Yeah.
And the fact that the mothers died 3 months apart and the dads did as well. That's like a weird kind of symmetry that the two of them had.
It's definitely bonded them together, gave them sort of like a silent connection and understanding. And I was going to say that, it's interesting with the Beatles. Well, I know England in particular, because you had a predominance in the recent past of queens, of a matriarchy. I feel like that's had a lot more influence on how you guys treat women and look at women in your country. Here in America, men are, we need a lot of work, and you guys honor women more, maybe not completely. I know not everybody's perfect, but that's the thing about the Beatles that I've said, and I actually wrote about this, where they, from the very start, they would empower girls. And, there was a concert I saw, this is when it hit me. I was some old footage of a concert they did, and the girls were screaming and, all of that. And did the Beatles dumb down their music? Did they dumb down their instruments, their vocals, their record? No, they went out to girls, like 13-year-old girls, and did the best show out of anybody, like the perfection, and they didn't think, well, we don't have to do this. It mattered to them, it's still so. And they would sing, I want to hold your hand, she loves you, things like that, where she's a woman. They empowered in every song. It seemed like they were, besides maybe John, a couple of his, where they really empowered, and girls noticed that. Believe me when I say that girls noticed. And that's
like that was one of the kind of solidifying things about them, I presume, when they first got into the Beatles, because, like you said, they picked up on it. And it's interesting, Amy, on that ilk, what you talk about. Like, the songs that John didn't like were kind of the reverse of what you've just said. No, the ones that like Run for Your Life and stuff.
Right.
I think he regretted it because it went against that code that you've just mentioned there. Like, kind of, and but yeah, it's brilliant, isn't it? And is that one of the things that sort of like drew you in, was that kind of the empowering of like women in the songs and stuff?
I'm sure it did. I'm sure a lot of that in John's energy and all of them that I maybe didn't think about, but yeah, I loved it. I thought that's here I was just a girl too, and when I started liking them, and so what was I going to say? The John's love for his mother, then he would say it.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's the thing. He started to show me, and I'm kind of going off topic, but he kept showing me Vera Lynn, and the song would show up, We'll Meet Again. Okay, so he kept showing me that over and over and over again. And then I found out that his mother loved Vera Lynn, and people said she sounded like her. And you see in the Get Back footage, which, like I said, I watched Get Back over the Peter Jackson thing, and over and over and over and over, and watched it over and over and over, too much. And I noticed that when somebody mentioned Vera Lynn, and John's eyes light up, and he goes, "Oh, Vera Lynn," like that, He would do that.
I know. Yeah, it connects him to his mother, doesn't it? Yeah. That, and I know. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that is beautiful that you picked up on that. I think it's I think anything like that they were kind of like it's brilliant. It's brilliant to see it in them. Like the Beatles have been enjoyed by so many people. It's brilliant to see them enjoying stuff like that, isn't it? Kind of eye opening, because we're still fascinated by them, and we still want to see want to know what makes them tick and stuff, and which is kind of like the ethics of a good legend. That kind of you wanting to know more about it and stuff. But his mum did sound like Vera Lynn, didn't she? That is like it's often been said. Yeah. Also, do you know John's great grandfather traveled America? Do you know that?
I may have read that before, but I didn't work for White Star Line, or I know George's family did, but.
Well, his dad. Alfie Lennon, his dad. So John's grandfather, actually, was part of the minstrelsdom. He did, I don't say the black and white minstrels, but he's gone around. I don't think it was lucrative, but I don't think he was there long. But like he was an entertainer, and he had performed on that level. So I think John had like kind of fondness for Al Jolson as well because of that, because that was all that was going on at that time and stuff.
Yeah. Well, do you know? Okay, before we get into all that, so I looked up John's name, Lennon, not just his name, but all his dad and everyone. And do you know what Lennon means?
No.
Gaelic? It means love. It's Oleanin.
Wow.
It means love. I think that's so beautiful because that's exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Was John aware of that? I wondered at the time, or
I don't know.
Had it ever been pointed out to him?
Probably.
Well, he was attuned to everything, wasn't he? And that. Oh, that's amazing. That Liam Gallagher called his son Lennon. Liam Gallagher from Oasis.
I just thought of him last night because I saw a picture and it spurred off all that stuff. And he said that he'd had an experience with John's ghost, and I believe him. I really believe him. Yeah. Knowing what I've been and what you've been through with John, I totally believe that because he does embody John a lot. I love Oasis. I mean, sometimes he pisses me off, as an artist, he's kind of annoying sometimes, but he does honor and embody John a lot, and I can see why John would
Oh, it
show
was
up.
just
Yeah.
well, in the 90s, as a teenager, in the 90s, kind of the British music scene had become kind of turgid or insipid. If you know, it was very kind of manufactured, and they came along, and even though they were a commercial rock band, it did feel like the Sex Pistols kind of. It felt like they were performing to the generation that I was a part of. And it was really exciting at the time, and it's like the only problem, the big mistake that they made, Oasis, was by saying that they were going to be bigger than the Beatles, or they said, and that was just exactly that was the reaction of it. But it was like the fact that they had the goal to come out and say it. People said, "Oh, they've got to be put into place now," and knock the peg or two. But do you know that story about George Harrison Liam Gallagher had said to, I think it was Mojo magazine, that he said, I would have beat John Lennon up in a fight, he said.
Right.
And George Harrison was on a talk show, and they mentioned it to him. They said Liam Gallagher said that he would have beat John Lennon up, and George Harrison went into hysterics. He said, I don't think he would. He said that John never backed down from a fight, and like he was like aggressively tough, and that like kind of. Whereas with Liam Gallagher, it was obviously like an affectation kind of thing, and that.
Yeah. You know why he said that? Well, I get the word twat, but also I get that he said that because John had such a strong influence over him that he was trying to break the influence, and he was just like his own embarrassment and shame in a way, because he knows he'll never be John. And the reason why he said that was just his own psychology of, John's got this hold on me, and who am I? So that was just him just being a twat. Basically, and that's what I keep hearing. Yeah. But he didn't mean it. If he saw John, if John came to life and he saw him in a bar, he would be like, "Oh my God, I love you so much," and he'd be following him everywhere. That's what I see.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah, I think he's the ultimate John fanboy who sort of lived his life precariously trying to be like John rather than actually being like him. If that makes any sense, he tried to be like him, and in doing so, he got further away from what Lennon really was. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
My mother's maiden name was Harrison. Always hope for a correction, but I haven't found one yet. Oh, that's brilliant.
Well, maybe there's a connect. Maybe that's the connection. Don't all names, we're all connected. Like names mean something. I don't know what Harrison would mean, but my mother's maiden name was Brown, and that's Irish, and that's connected to John too. Because if you look at his whole list of genealogy, where he lists the Oleanin and Lennon and all that, and it says John Brown Lennon, so there's a connection in there. But Smith is from a Smith, a Smythe, or whatever. So Harrison, it's all from somebody. You're probably connected in some way.
Yeah, Hari, maybe look into that. What Hari, to be son of Hari, whatever Hari was, perhaps. Yeah, good one to look into. And that. Well, my family, I don't know if I've told you this before. My real surname is Parkes, Parkes.
Okay.
And John's family in Liverpool, we're the Parkes family, and it's kind of spelled that way, Parkes. It's an unusual way to spell it, and also to be in Liverpool as well. For there to be no connection to my family, that seems more far-fetched than the idea that they are connected. Because one of his best friends was Stanley Parkes, was his cousin, and he still lives. His family's still live in Liverpool now. So I used to dine out on that one. In fact, when I was a teenager, I used to tell people I was his cousin anyway. So, just anything for 5 minutes of fame,
Okay, so let's talk about this. Did Julie just leave again? She might have just left. Okay, so the famous Magical Mystery Tour on Boxing Day, which is the day after Christmas. In America, we don't celebrate Boxing Day.
That's right, yeah.
And so I have read about it. I was going to do a class on this. I may still do it, but okay, so the album was out. It was doing pretty well. Brian's gone by now. It was sort of his idea with Paul to do the Stupid Bus Tour and all that stuff. and then he died before, and then they went ahead and did it. So the whole thing was a bus, a magical bus with this, not Sergeant Pepper anymore, because that was a new identity for them. Now it's just like the Beatles, but just kind of whatever. And this magical experience, go with us. And okay, so the music, and then basically it was a musical, right? They had to make another film. They were contracted to make another film. It was shot in color, very psychedelic colors and all these scenes and surreal and all those things. I Am the Walrus was born and put on. That's the reason to watch that film, is if you love
absolutely
John's best songs, I Am the Walrus. And so
that's what I love it primarily for.
Well, the BBC shows it in black and white. However, most people didn't have color TVs back then anyway. So, I mean, it's like, you can't blame the BBC. It was just, most people would have seen it in black and white. Yeah.
I think it was, I think obviously that diluted it being in black and white, obviously. And it lost a lot of its luster, whatever the luster it had, because, I think the biggest problem with it was, though, that it was kind of unruly. If it was organized chaos, but in itself it was chaotic, and it but I'll say this, it was a massive influence on Monty Python. Eric Idle loved it, and he and then there was this sort of the pre-Monty Python show, Do Not Adjust Your Set. There was lots of elements in that were kind of heavily influenced by the Magical Mystery Tour.
That's true, and you can see that they kind of just improvised all. Well, John did write the I'm the Walrus scene, and he wrote the spaghetti scene, which I think is funny. I think I don't know. Anyway,
well, the spaghetti scene, Amy, it was Mr. Creosote in Monty Python's Meaning of Life. That was essentially the same thing, feeding someone and they kept getting bigger and bigger.
Yeah, that's true. I never thought of that before. It's true. I just thought it was cute because, I don't know. I like the film. So I was a big Beatles fan. It was like that first year when I really delved into it. And this lady said, well, I've got Magical Mystery Tour, but it was the worst movie I've ever seen. I'm like, I don't care. I'll watch it. So she lent me her videotape. And I watched it, and I watched it, and I watched it. And I was like, this is hilarious. I love this movie. And, of course, I love all the music in it, and all that.
Yeah. It's fun. It's one of my favorite albums as well. The soundtrack.
Yeah.
In the big vinyl version of it. Sorry, I keep cutting you off there. Amy. The vinyl version of it. There's a Beatles comic book inside it. I don't know whether you've seen it, and it's a comic book adaptation of the Magical Mystery Tour scene by scene, and that made it easier for me to understand what was going on. Because I read the comic, and then watched the film, and it made it kind of, maybe without like that kind of blueprint, people were just baffled by it. But I agree, the soundtrack is amazing. It's got Fool on the Hill is amazing, I think, and
yes, that
your mother should know.
That imagery was sort of cutting edge because, like this, well, Paul and those sunspots, like in Hard Day's Night, the director Peter Lester had the camera pan around Paul and had the eclipse of the light and Paul's angelic sort of cherubic face, and it eclipses like the sun, and then it shows him again, this beautiful Paul face, and the girl's like, oh. And so they sort of play with that sunspot again with Paul, the cherubic fool. What's interesting about that song is everybody's a fool, and the fool sees everything and knows everything, but you call them a fool, but they're actually like the smartest person in society. They know everything, but they don't always say it, but they know everything. And that's what Paul was playing on, was the fool on the hill. Sees the sun going down, and he's not a fool after all. And just that beautiful imagery of him on the hill and being free, and sort of like Sound of Music, I guess. I always thought that was brilliant, the way they filmed that.
No, I love that sequence in it, like you just mentioned. I love the song as well. What about Blue Jay Way, George's song?
Not a great song.
That's really creepy.
Okay, so it's him playing the drawn-on piano, the keyboard on the concrete, and it's just a really, we'll call it an LSD song, right? Written about when they lived in LA, or he had a house in LA and he was waiting for someone to come see him or something like that. And I think that's what that was. And I was like, wow, but he didn't put much effort into the video, or that was his thing. He was supposed to script and create. But what's funny about it is it comes after when they're in the tent and they're watching a film, right? They go in the tent and they watch the film. And it ends with the bus heading for George, like it's going to run him over. And then the bus runs over the tent. So the theory is, did it run over George? Did George die? Paul's not dead.
Yeah, exactly. You're the first person to say that Paul's not dead. I think, all those rumors. Yeah, but no, that's right. Yeah, you're kind of left wondering, aren't you? Like, what, like, if exactly the coach has run over there, and do you like that? Your mother should know where the kind of the homage to Busby Berkeley, the kind with the white suits where they're coming down there. Thought that. See, that. There's little glimpses in it of how brilliant it could have been. Like if someone more disciplined had kind of been in charge of it and said, no, this is where you concentrate on. If you do this, this is going to work. Like, not everything you do is going to be good, lads. So don't put everything in it, but we can salvage something from this. But interestingly enough, he made the same mistake again, 16 years later on Giving My Regards to Broad Street. That was kind of, again, that was one of his follies. It was a similar kind of, I like that movie. So that the plot was threadbare. And it just, kind of, again, it was all this madness that didn't seem to make much sense. But with Broad Street, it was a much bigger budget. It was, it was like kind of Hollywood budget, wasn't it?
I kind of like that film because it does capture a specific time and with Paul, and it has Paul, Linda, Ringo, and what's her name? Barbara Stark.
Barbara Bach.
Bach, yeah.
Yeah.
She married Ringo.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of that it shows London and I don't know. I like it. It's not a great movie, but I think that Ballroom Dancing is actually a really great song. And
I love, I love that song. Yeah, it's like I said, like Magical Mystery, though, it has bursts of energy where it comes alive, and he was see the sad thing is, I'm gonna let him in. I'm just gonna have a drink on. I'm back. Anyway, there was a brilliant script written by a Liverpool writer called Alan Bleasdale for Band on the Run, the movie.
Yeah.
Where it was have you heard about this? The original plans for it?
No. What is it?
Well, the plans, Band on the Run, the movie was going to start with Paul fed up with his life as a rock star, so he fakes his own death. And comes up with an alternate character. Yeah, he comes up with an alternate character and builds up a new band, which is the Band on the Run. And he just does it because he just wants to perform anonymously. But the same thing happens again. He becomes the most famous band in the world, and then the ruse is revealed that he isn't dead. That this is him as well. And it was in the industry, in the film industry at the time. Apparently, everyone was saying this is brilliant, and it's satirical, it's funny, and it'd be groundbreaking if it gets made into a film. But Paul's problem was that because none of the idea of being basically that I think he had problems with it then, because I think at that point he felt he couldn't commit to something that wasn't 100% his own kind of thing. I think the reason I'm going on about this is because I think had he made that film, that would have been sort of the wiser move. If he'd made Band on the Run, the movie, I think when he got signed to Paramount, he became sort of a movie star, and it just kind of no one would say no to him, but he wouldn't to Paul McCartney anyway. And it just parallel to that, George Harrison was having great success with Working Title, his studio, and he was they were creating hit after hit like Mona Lisa and The Long Good Friday, films like that, and. So I think there's some kind of competitive competition going on between George and Paul at that point, I think.
Maybe so.
Yeah.
That's it's interesting. It's funny about the whole Paul is dead thing and the fall thing. Is that I fell for it for 5 minutes. I had a cold and I was laying in bed and I'm looking at the internet and I'm like, whoa, what's this? And they show all the comparisons and all the pictures and I'm like, yeah, that could be. And then the next day I'm like, nah, nah.
Well,
It's
that's the
all,
thing. My problem with it was that, okay, if they're able to replace people like that, and the reason for replacing them is because they're a cash cow. If you're not like they've got to keep the money flowing, so they've got to have someone to step in to keep that going. Why wouldn't they have done that when John died? Like if they're able to replace people like that, surely if that would have been John getting, that would have been the catalyst to do it then. Like, so to me, there you go. Like, it's obvious that like they can't do that, and they haven't done it. And it's kind of, but it's fascinating all the same, isn't it? No, like, because I remember I went to they have Beatle Festival in Matthew Street where the cabin is, and there was actually a slide presentation of Paul is dead, and it was people were like 100% convinced. Like the little clues, like him being barefoot on the cover of Abbey Road and stuff. That it's all supposed to mean something fascinating, but gobbledygook all the same.
Well, John, I asked John, and I got very strongly. He said, "I'm the one who died," like that. Like, Paul did not die. So that's that's the end of it, pretty much. When he said that, so, yeah, okay.
That's it. Yeah, it's good. So anyway, back to Christmas, Amy. Okay. What kind of right? What is eggnog?
Yeah, eggnog, which is like
what is it?
Cream. Okay, so it's. Let's see if I can remember. It's cream, heavy cream, with rum and nutmeg and maybe eggs. You're supposed to put eggs and vanilla in. Now, I never do that. I just buy like whatever, and you can put whipped cream in it. I don't drink a lot of milk, so.
It sounds delicious, actually. It's different way you describe it. It does sound, and it's exclusively a Christmas thing then. So it comes out, or could you have it? Is it drunk all year, or is it just like kind of?
It used to be that you'd only see it at Christmas, but now they make it available at Thanksgiving. But last year I was going to get one for my kids and couldn't find it anywhere. So I don't know what was going on with that. And then the prices were really high. And then this year I looked, and it's $6 to get. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to wait till Christmas to get that. So it used to be like $1.95 or $2. Now it's $6. So it's pretty expensive.
Yeah.
So fun, Chris.
that is very steep for something like that. Do you have mince pies in America?
I grew up, and my mother would make a mincemeat pie, like the big one. And I know mince pies are popular in England, so there's actually a British store down the road that I could go to, and I could buy some of those. And I actually like mincemeat pie, probably because I grew up with it. However, somebody one time gave my mother homemade mincemeat, and it actually had meat in it, and I about barfed. I hated it.
Oh, God.
Just like, no, not actual meat.
Yeah.
That's how it used to be. That's what they would do. Right? There wasn't that the origin.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. I actually didn't know that it did actually. Well, of course, I suppose that's where the name comes from, doesn't it? Mincemeat. Yeah. And what about cranberry sauce? I thought that's like got a Beatles connection. I buried Paul.
I like cranberry sauce or jelly, but I was going to say I tried to make a traditional British dinner, Christmas dinner. So I made the popovers and all of that, and I made plum pudding, and that was a lot of raisins and plums, and but I did it. It was fun.
Yeah, there you go. It's your Britishness coming out, Amy, and it's the whole, your cravings from past lives are calling out.
I love all that.
There
stuff.
You go. Yeah. So I was going to say. So what about Christmas movies? What are your favorite Christmas movies? And traditionally, do you watch?
Okay, so I'm like everybody
movies
else.
Over Christmas.
I used to love White Christmas with Bing Crosby and all that. So I like all the traditional ones. I've seen them a lot. I used to love It's a Wonderful Life. I really love that. But I really can't watch it anymore. It's kind of depressing to watch that whole film. So I like Home Alone, Christmas Vacation.
Oh, yeah.
But A Christmas Story with the little kid Ralphie. And that whole the town and the school. I grew up in a small town where our school actually looked like that, and him walking through the alleyway and having his bully follow. I had that. I remember that the sun going down and the snow on the ground and the bully following me home, and so I really identified with that little kid.
Right, yeah. The bit that sticks in my mind is, did you ever lick frost off a lamppost?
Yes, but you would always pull your tongue off before it would freeze in the process. Dare you?
Yeah, that kid gets stuck on the lamppost, doesn't he? I might have to watch this now actually again. I haven't thought about that film for a while. I tell you what, I think I've mentioned it before. There's a film in Britain, right, that's a big deal and it's considered a classic, and yet in America it's considered awful. It's considered one of the worst movies ever made. And it's Santa Claus the movie, you know, the Dudley Moore version. Have you seen that, Amy? Are you familiar with that?
I have seen that.
It was made by the Superman producers, producers of Superman the movie. Obviously Dudley Moore plays an elf in it, and John Lithgow is like the Grinch kind of. But that's like kind of the British version of It's a Wonderful Life.
Huh.
And it's insane, I know, because there's logic towards people liking It's a Wonderful Life, whereas like Santa Claus the movie is like more trashier in kind of, in comparison with it and stuff. But it's interesting that like it's big over here, and in America it's kind of looked down upon. I think there's a lot of sense to that as well. It's kind of it's understandable that you'd feel away. But what I was going to say about the Albert Finney Scrooge.
Okay, yeah.
Do you like that?
I was going to say that ever since I was in junior high, like the day that before Christmas break, so we would have trees in every classroom, and we would have like a gift exchange and all that stuff, and in the big auditorium they would show Christmas movies before letting us out of school. And so one time, I must have been in 7th grade, so I was about 13, I think, and they showed A Christmas Carol, the one with Alastair Sims, right?
Oh, right, yeah.
And the black and white and all of that, just being in the dark theater and all the,
Oh, yeah.
That changed, that really transported me, and that's always been my favorite version, and I've always been a Christmas Carol junkie ever since seeing that movie. So I've probably seen it. I like the Scrooge. I like the Albert Finney because he's great in it, and I like the music. With I hate people, and at the end I like life. His total changeover.
It's kind of in a way, Scrooge is kind of a spiritual sequel to Oliver. They're both they're both Charles Dickens stories for the start, but kind of both movies are done in like the same way with I think a lot of the same production teams. And so you can see how it was influenced by it in the musical numbers and things like that. What about Scrooge with Bill Murray? Do you like that one? No.
It's weird. I haven't watched it as much. I don't know why. So I should watch it again. And I think I'm a purist when it comes to that. So that's And there's only so much time at Christmas. You can only watch so many movies. But so I should watch
That's it, isn't it? Yeah. I tell you what, another tradition in Britain is that you probably had the James Bond movie. It's not so much now, but in the pre-internet and VHS days, where like if you wanted to see a film, you had to watch it when it was on TV.
Huh.
The Bond movies were allocated. Boxing Day was allocated for the premiere of a new Bond movie, and they used to get something like 25 million viewers. Like the entire nation had come to a standstill just to watch that, and that we're considered like an unchristmassy Christmas tradition, if that makes sense. Like, because they're not very Christmassy, the Bond movies, but they're ingrained in the traditions.
Well, here, I think they would show James Bond here too around the holidays because everyone's home, right? And at that time, things were closed. Like, not everybody, grocery stores would not stay open all the time. Stores were actually closed on the holidays. So what else did they do? My mother, we had TV Guide, or whatever. They would post the TV schedule in the local newspaper and the Sunday paper, and she would sit down and mark off everything she was going to watch that week. I wish I'd kept some of those, Like
she could. Yeah. Do you know the story about John Lennon with TV Guide?
No, what's the story?
He used to, yeah, he started, for friends' birthdays and Christmas, he started giving them a year-long subscription to TV Guide, because he said it was his Bible. Because like in the Dakota building, obviously, like he watched a lot of TV, didn't he? Like kind of, well, when he was being a house husband, I imagine he watched a lot. And I think, he got Fred Seaman. He gave him like a 5-year subscription to it.
Oh man,
insane.
Yeah. It's funny about with John and TV. I've always felt guilty because, and this is to my father, we couldn't watch TV. So I don't like to have a quiet house. I'll always have like a music station on or a TV or sometimes both. And because I hate to be in a quiet house. And then I always felt guilty, gluttonous and all that. And then I read that John would always have TVs on in every room. I'm like, okay, I'm not the only one who does. I think it's something from our childhood, right? And maybe it's a little autistic. I don't know. But there's something to that of always having to have something in the background or be connected to the world, or I don't know what that is.
Yeah. No, I'm the same. Yeah. And he also used to like to watch the news with no sound on. And I found myself doing that. Kind of having the news channel going. And then only put the sound on when something interesting, something comes along, Yeah. But like the idea that like in the background, it's comforting now. It's just there in the background, isn't it? And so you had to be quiet a lot then when you were growing up in your house. Did you? Is that why you like sound?
What is that? I don't know. Like, okay, so I remember I wanted to watch the Muppet Show, and my mother hid me in an upstairs bedroom with this little TV so my father wouldn't find out. And so it was a lot of, yeah. That was right before the divorce. Thank God they got divorced. And maybe that's where my obsession with TV, I don't know. But I also would look at records, and I would just remember sitting there and watching the record spin. And my mother she had old records, and she had Edie Gourmet and who's the guy? Go away, little girl. Steve Lawrence and Edie Gourmet. She had those old records, and so I would listen to that over and over again. Go away, little girl, and I'd watch the record spin. So that, and so to this day, I will still do the same. Have a TV on, have a book, have my phone, or so. I always have something. It's bad. You're sideways. What happened? I'm that kid in Willy Wonka that wanted to be like transported into the TV set, Hey, Mom, look, I'm on TV. Get out of there. Oh, no, Jamie, I guess you should leave and come back. I'm going to wait a couple more seconds here. There's not a time limit, I don't think. I'm going to remove you and let you come back. How about that? Maybe if I refresh. Okay, and I guess it's still streaming. I'm here. We'll see if Jamie comes back. But anyway, what else? Christmas tradition. In my house, my mother loved the Karen Carpenter Christmas album. And we used to listen to that all the time. We didn't have a tree until about a week before Christmas, or maybe 2 weeks. My sister would stay home from school, say she was sick, and open up all the presents, and the tape would be moved on the wrapping paper. My brother would eat all the candy canes off the tree. And one time my mother made us buy ivory soap and flock the tree. Okay, good. Thank you, Heather. So yes, she bought ivory soap, and we had to glob it onto the tree. And then she had us paint the garage windows. We had glass windows on the garage door, and we painted Christmas scenes and could never, ever get it off ever again. What else? One of my favorite things was to watch all the Christmas shows. When school would get out, I could watch the reruns of every TV show I loved, like I Love Lucy and Good Times and Gilligan's Island, and anything that was a Christmas theme was like my favorite thing ever. I remember the Smurfs Christmas. I remember the Charlie Brown Christmas. See, a lot of my Christmas memories are tied up in those stupid TV shows and things like that. And also $5 for each kid, and my mother dropped us off at a store for an hour, and we had to pick out gifts for each other for only like $5. And I bought my sister a cigarette purse because I thought it was pretty. So, well, anyway, it looks like he ain't coming back, or maybe he can't come back. How much time do we get off for Christmas in the US? About 2 weeks. And when I was a teenager, I would often go to my aunt's house. My aunt was rich, and my cousin was younger than me, and my aunt would have me go, I think, babysit her. So my aunt could go do clubs and parties and things like that. So, but the good side was I went from a poor house in a small town to this rich, huge house in this nice neighborhood. And they had country clubs, and my aunt would drop us off at the ice skating rink or the movie theater. And so and they would take us out to get hot cocoa at restaurants. So, okay, 2 weeks. We'd get off. It seemed like 2 days before Christmas, maybe 3 days. And then it was on. Then it was like every Christmas episode, cartoon, whatever, go Christmas shopping, last minute Christmas shopping. And then we'd go back a couple days after New Year's. So it was about 2 weeks. And you hope it would snow. And it did. It seemed like it snowed a lot more back then at Christmas than it does these days. So let's see. Anything else? Jamie, are you still there? It's gone. What else? I would. And John's on the radio. I just hear his Christmas song. By the way, speaking of John's Christmas song, that was not a widely famous Christmas song. He released it with Yoko they had their campaign against the Vietnam War. War is over. And in all these different languages, they had billboards and magazine ads that said in black and white, war is over. And it would say it in different languages to once again unite the world. And imagine no countries and all that. 2 weeks, no snow. Yeah, these days we don't get as much snow as we used to. Kind of just depends. Okay, so the War is Over Christmas song. It was released on an album after John's death called Shaved Fish that had all of his biggest solo hits, like Cold Turkey. I mean, it was mixed in with Real Love and Cold Turkey and Mind Games and Instant Karma and all that. It was one of my favorite albums, but it was after he was killed, and the Christmas song was not really well known, well played. I don't know. It was probably about 10 years ago where I noticed that people started to pick up on it and play it a whole bunch, like all over the radios, and it's everywhere now, and lots of different versions of it. So, but it was done with a charity foundation and the children's choir, I believe, when they were in New York. I could be wrong with that one, but that's why you hear the children in the song. Okay, so Christmas traditions. Growing up Catholic, we would do midnight mass or wait till the next day and do church. And that, even though I don't go to church anymore, I still miss things like that, because like the Advent, if they did the candles and the Christmas carols, I really love that. I thought that was really beautiful, and it sort of cleanses you, right? And that's what Christmas is, because Christmas is the death of one thing into the birth, and Jesus is born, but it's around the solstice where a season dies and we go into a whole new season and era and all that. So, and the light, the North Star, the stars, the lights on our tree, the light of, that's inside of us, really. Jesus represents that rebirth, being born again, right, into a new world. And pretty much everything you see in Christmas is from paganism, or you could just say just nature, or the solstice. It doesn't have to be pagan. But Jesus, the being born, the virgin baby, all of that is really from it's in every culture. It's even in Native American culture. The Iroquois have it in there. So, have I seen the light entering the chamber at Newgrange on the solstice? It's amazing. I have not. I will have to look. You know, I think more and more each year I cling more to what would be like that with the solstice and nature that is Christmas, because that's really what it is mostly. And like the pine and the snow, and I love it. I think that's so beautiful, and it's, to me, it brings a lot of peace to me, much more than having to feel bad about Jesus being born and killed on the cross and all that. I think it's just more peaceful for me to think about the origin of it, which is, hey, the birth of the universe. you know Anyway, it starts from that. But no, I have not seen that. I will have to look it up. Anything else? I guess Jamie's not coming back, which is understandable. He's got some things to do. And I do too. I'm going to have to go. Anything else? Oh, but we're going to talk about, Jamie and I are going to come back tomorrow and talk about the anniversary of John's murder, which I don't really like talking about, but he was very strong, as I posted. John was very strong in my energy field today from the minute I woke up, and I was actually shaking. And so there's a lot of that he wants to be talked about. And I posted that song by the band Keane. I'd never heard that song before, and it showed up, and I love Keane, but I'd never heard that song before. And I listened to it, and from the very first notes, I was like, oh, this is John. This is John. And I'll tell you this story since I'm here. So, sometimes, like I said in what I wrote, that sometimes I'm embarrassed talking about John, but, it is what it is. My affliction is real. It is probably twin flame. And I don't like talking about that. But it's an obvious affliction that I have where I'm connected with John. And from the minute I wake up, he's in my consciousness, and I'm literally mentally, spiritually, emotionally looking for John. And he shows up a lot, So the anniversary of his death is tomorrow. John was killed here in America on December 8th, 1980 in New York. And in England, it would be December 9th. And of course, John's number was number 9. So that song, go listen to that song that I posted by Keane, and it's clear that that's what he wanted the message out, that that's how he felt. When he was killed, he was very upset, as a person would be. But it did teach a lot of people, and this is what John has showed me, it taught people to open their hearts, which really was his message here on earth, to be in touch with your heart and open it and see that we're all connected. And through that heart portal, we're all connected. We're all united by love. We're all one. He wasn't a saint. And as George Harrison said, he could do some bad things. He wasn't an angel, but then he was. And John was like that. He wasn't perfect, but he was always evolving. And he was always trying to find out how to make the world a better place. Like some of his actions or not, as a man, as a human being, he really did try to do that. And the anti-action to love and peace is violence. And he was killed through, the anti-action of his love and peace, which is really what he was. And for every action, there's an anti-action or the opposite effect. And that was for him to be murdered. But it united people across the world, and still does. It united everyone, and people grieved and cried together and sang together. And just like when the Beatles were around, they danced together. And that's really what he brought. And so Jamie and I are going to talk about John tomorrow. And it's always a sad time for me. John will do things like flip lights on and off in my house. The front porch light last year went off. And then I changed the bulb, and then I changed it again. I was like, well, I guess it's just the socket. And then later I looked, and the light was on. And that was December 8th last year. So before I wrap this up, I was going to say that when I was struggling a few years back, my kids went to their dad's house, and I was feeling very low. And I'd been really trying to ask John, like, was I your mother? You know what? Why do I have this connection to you? Why have I always had this connection? Why am I seeing you everywhere? What is this? And it really pained me. And I was pained because my children were gone. And I was very sad at Christmas that my kids were gone. And then I turned on a big name psychic, a very nice person. And there was a light behind her. And she said, "Oh, there's someone here." And I thought, it's John. It's John. And he gave her this message of peace for the world. And it was at a time we really needed that. And I thought afterwards, well, why would he go to her just because she's famous and not say it through me just because I'm a lowly YouTuber with no, hardly any I love my subscribers. And like I told Jamie, I don't want to be famous. I'm just want to be honest, and I'm glad I have everyone that I have because I really love my subscribers. I love you. You've been there for me. And anyway, but at that moment I was being petty and I was like, well, why would he go to her? Blah, blah, blah. And I said out loud, "John, you betrayed me." And this plastic tub of lotion, like this big, flew off the back of the toilet in my bathroom. And I thought, oh my God, that John did that to tell me there's a reason. There's a reason why, the big reason is to get this message of peace out to a lot of people. The other reason was, I want you to listen to that psychic because I have a message. So it's a few days later, and this big name psychic comes back on, and I see John behind her again. And she holds up a book, and the book is about twin flame. It's by Janet K. Darling. Go look it up, Janet K. Darling. So I go download the book and I read it, and it's a lot of stuff that John and I had together that he'd been showing me, and numbers and all these things and connections and past life things I'd figured out. And so I wrote the lady, and then we ended up calling each other, and I talked to her for like an hour, and she kept saying this thing about how with her twin flame who had passed on, that he had been her father in one lifetime, and then she had been his mother. And she kept saying that. And I was like, I was John's mother. I was Julia. I was John's mother. And John's like, right. That's what I wanted you to pay attention to, because you would have never read this book. So, it's things like that where, John's had to prove to me over and over and over again what our connection is. Mother, friend, sister, and lover, all these things, and teacher guide for him, father, son, brother, lover, all these things. That's what this is, of many past lives. And then he's drawn, and too bad Jamie's not here because he brought Jamie and I together. And yeah, thank you. And you'll find, Heather, that the reason why I can tell that story is because twin flame relationships are very similar. We are all united in a very similar, almost like one person, one couple experiencing it. And a lot of times twin flames aren't together. They're either all the way across the world or one of them's on the other side. Like with John and I, I probably was around, I know I was with him, and then I left. And then I was with him in spirit and, sort of like angelic. And then I was born, and then he died. And, it's just like we're always chasing each other. But the twin flame story is very similar. A lot of the things that I say that are John and I are, and John, let me put that on here. John also brought me to you and him. Yes. And I totally believe that because that's how it works. And it's like, of course he did, and we're all here to teach each other. Twin flame things, relationships can be very painful, but also the most beautiful thing in the world. And the reason why we are so anguished when our twin flame isn't around, the reason why we're always thinking of them all the time, because it's us. We're seeking us. Twin flames are us. It's what's inside of us. We're always seeking us, and that big part of us that's sort of out there. But they're with us, and we're with them. And for John, he shows me the number 909 a lot, and I want to talk about that because I had that this week. Working at the dinner theater, there's the row 9 and the table 9. So it's 909. And believe me, I've noticed that. And this week, almost every single time I've worked at the dinner theater, someone has pointed out 909 to me. So like a customer came in and they waited And then they rushed forward and handed me their ticket, and it said 909, row 9, table 9. Oh, okay. So I'll take you there. And then the next one, 909, the next night, 909. And it's just all these things. And even last night, this guy came up to me. He's like, is this right? Look at my ticket. Look at it. And it said 909. And I'm like, okay, I get it. I get it. But in that movie, Somewhere in Time, and I'd already figured out the 909 thing. And the 11-7, 711 is also a twin flame number, which I've seen a lot with John. And so in the movie Somewhere in Time, one of the first scenes is the car drives off and you see the back license plate and it says 909. And then he goes to her room and it's 11-7 is the number of her room in that movie. And it's about, to me, that's a twin flame movie about always chasing each other and finding each other through time and all of that. And even in that movie, he walks into the little museum at the Grand Hotel and he sees her picture and he's like, oh my God, I know this person. That was me. When I saw John's picture, I was like, I know this person. It's the same. Even the picture that I look at all the time of John, this is like my portal with him. And I was told by a psychic that I would walk in a store and buy something that would be a portal to the other side and be very important to me. And it's that book that I always have on my desk of John. It's a lot like that picture of Elise McKenna from the movie Somewhere in Time that Christopher Reeve looks at, and he even gets to watch the picture being taken. Anyway, I'm rambling. Go watch the movie Twin Flame people, go watch Somewhere in Time. And their significance with the Grand Hotel. One of my favorite movies. I would watch Grand Hotel all the time with Greta Garbo. And then one of my favorite songs is Whiter Shade of Pale. And I found out that band, Procol Harum, did their next album was called Grand Hotel. So I don't know, all these little synchronicities and things. And even the guy, Christopher Reeve, when he signs into his hotel room, it's 918, which is 90909, something like that. It all means something. You'll notice it now. License plates, things like that. So I guess I'll wrap it up here. But yeah, watch Somewhere in Time and read the book. Janet K. Darling is the author. She writes about twin flame. It's kind of out there and weird. Yeah, it's like, thank you. Hi, Warrior Girl. But here's the thing. I'll end it on this. Because Jamie's gone. Where's Jamie? I got to go email him and see what's going on. Doing your nails. Cool. I did mine. I did some gold. You see like some gold sparkly. Okay, so Janet K. Darling. It's a little weird. The book's weird. But the reason why twin flames have really been ignited in the last number of years is because, as you've noticed, we've had a decline in love and a lot of conflict, a lot of hate and fear and ego. And to heal the world, we have to heal our hearts because we are all connected by love. And the twin flames are very strong love. We're really like the icons and the first people, the first souls of the universe from the Big Bang. And we've been around a lot and had these incarnations a lot. And so our love, we've had a lot of lessons and a lot of karma, and it radiates out. And if we're broken, if we're not healed, if that love isn't healed, then it's like the light of the world starts to fade. Kind of like in Back to the Future when he has that picture of his family, and the farther away he gets from going back to his time, his family starts to fade on the picture. So he has to find a way to get back to his time and to bring his family to life and, all that. And that's love. He loves his family. And there's importance in that. And that's like twin flames. We need to be together. We need to heal our love. We need to heal that karma. We need to heal the world of hate and separation and ego and darkness and violence and all. We can't hate each other. We can hate situations, but we can't hate each other. But we really need to empower people to love each other. So it may not be twin flame. It could be just soulmates. It could be just people who love each other on the street and are kind to each other every day. People who are kind to the earth. People who are kind to animals. People who love themselves. Love is the only thing that's real, the only thing that matters. But twin flames need to come together and heal and love each other so that the rest of the world will heal too. So that's why I allowed myself to talk about it, even though I really hate the whole cheesy twin flame thing. But it's the truth, it's the truth. Love is only sleeping. That's true. I love that song. That's a beautiful song. And Mike Nesmith, he wrote a song. You may have heard me sing it. I've sang it somewhere. Don't count on me. And fancy free. It's all over now. I love that song. Mike Nesmith wrote a lot of really great songs. And he was his own songwriter. There's Jamie. Hi, Jamie. Yeah, Mike Nesmith. He and Peter Tork in particular wrote a lot of great songs for the Monkees.
Hello.
Hello. I'm about
I'll be back now.
We'll talk for a few minutes, and I got to go eat something, and then I have to do dishes because that's the story of my life. It's doing dishes.
I'm back. Sorry about that, Amy. The snow has caused the power cut in the area, so it knocked everyone's internet connection off. My apologies.
That's okay. So you've lost power? That's scary.
What did I miss?
Me talking about lots of weird stuff. Twin flames and somewhere in time and all of that.
I'll catch up with it. Do you want to hear the joke?
Sure.
Okay, you don't have to laugh, okay? So, which I'm sure you won't. Okay, this man goes into a hospital and he says, "Hello," he says to the doctor. He says, "I'd like to have an operation, please, to make me penis touch the floor." So the doctor amputated his legs.
Oh God.
I told you didn't have to laugh. Yeah, that was terrible, wasn't it? I'm sorry, Amy. Yeah, so I think just talking to my neighbours. Then the same thing happened to them. They were talking to someone. It just went off for a second. It often happens with the snow. It causes mass. You think they'd find a way to combat that by now, wouldn't you? That kind of thing.
Well, in some way, it's kind of fascinating that we haven't. And you know how a few years ago, it was right before my mother died, and I remember the power went out, and I had to take a bath with candlelight, and then the only thing that I had was an old radio run by batteries, and the light coming through the window. I could hear the birds, and I thought, oh, this is like pre-internet, and it was kind of beautiful, and
Yeah, there is something enchanting about it, isn't it? That kind of going back to that kind of mindset and stuff when something forces you. Maybe it could be, we talk about the spirits wanting them when they hide things, like you said the other day, they hide things. Maybe there's an element of that, someone deciding things, wanting us to experience things the way they did, that kind of thing. Very enchanting idea.
You know what? Oh God, my issues, they knock out the power and they knock out the breaker. It's always the breaker on the side of the house where there's a lot of orbs and stuff. And then they knocked out the refrigerator again. And then I had the thing with the toilet where I walked in, and no, it didn't happen when I'm home. It had to happen when I leave the house and I come back, and the toilet was flowing over for no reason from the tank, not the toilet, but the tank.
The actual tank, yeah.
I'm like, oh my God, I could hear it pouring into the basement. And it's stuff like that. And the light, they take the lights out in the living room. It's just stop. I'll listen to you.
I've seen that, yeah. I thought you were talking about something to Ali, is it, or Ali? And when the lights kept going on and off when you were talking about it, that was really spooky. So when that happened, you were completely flooded, were you? In the basement? Was it
part of the basement? And it sucks because it made us.
Hey, warrior girl.
Yeah, whatever. Well, I tried to tell them, I'll talk to you, I'll recognize you, please don't. It's after when I did that thing with Allie, I woke up and the breaker was out and on that side of the house. And so there is, people who are like, oh, you can talk to spirit, or you can, it's like, yeah, it's great, but sometimes it's not so great. Like with John,
Yeah.
sometimes things that he does, it's great, but it's also, you come here and fix my smoke alarm goes off all the time way up high and the lights are flickering and shit like that. You come here and
he's never fixed it for you. That's not very courteous, is it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you ever been on the sort of the receiving end of his sarcasm? Like,
oh yeah. Well, I'll tell you a story. Now he doesn't need to like get high on the other side, right? In fact, he wishes he hadn't spent so much time like in that passed out and all that stuff. But one time I walked into a store and I was really, it was after my mother died and I was down, and I could feel John with me very strongly. And I walked into a store and the whole store smelled like pot. It's that unmistakable odor of pot. And I actually turned to my daughter, it's like, do you smell that? She's like, what? And I'm like, it smells like pot. You're too young to know, but that's what it smells like. Should we leave? And like, no. And nobody else even noticed. Nobody else noticed. So I walk in and there's like old books for sale. And I find this old book of John that's like one of my favorite. And it's big. And then another one about John, just like right there. And I'm like, okay, John, you did that. You made the entire store smell like pot. And it made me laugh. I laughed. I thought it was
to get your attention. That's brilliant. To get your attention that he went to that level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Have you read John Lennon in His Own Right and The Spaniard in the Works? Have you read those books?
Oh, I love it. When the first time I read it, I just thought it was so brilliant. And maybe that's that whole mom part of me, like as his mother from a different lifetime. I read it and I loved it. I even read it to my kids. Years on, after.
It's brilliant for that. It's like kids, I think, they like the surreal aspects of it, the boxing dog, the wrestling dog and that and stuff. I'll tell you what, Amy, I'll say something right and you try and copy it, like, just to see how good your Scouse accent is.
Oh, okay.
All right, see, I'll just say something. I don't mean to put you on the spot. Okay, I'll say something. Go. All right, girl.
All right, girl. All right, girl.
That's more Scouse than me. Go. All right, la.
You know what my favorite thing is? I should get my hat because in Hard Day's Night, there's that whole scene. It's one of my favorite scenes. I've done it so many times. Okay, there's that lady that he meets. He's got his hat and he's about to go up the stairwell, right? And there's that one lady that says, "Hold on, is it you?" And it's like, no, it's not me. And she's like, "No, it is you."
You're the first to say that.
And then he's like, I almost have it memorized. And he's like, "No, it's my eyes are lighter." No, hold on. You don't look like him at all. And he's like, "She looks more like him."
Oh, that's brilliant, Amy.
I love that's my favorite thing.
That's it. Yeah, no one's ever said that before. He says something like that, doesn't he? Like, you're the first person to ever say that. It's I love it. In the bath scene where he disappears down the plug hole and then appears behind Norman Rossington. Like surreal kind of thing. Well done. You really got the Scouse accent down to a T there, Amy. That is like your past lives reassembling in this one.
My favorite, one of my
Sorry,
favorite
what was that?
No, we're in the movie Help when they're with the detective in Scotland Yard, and he's like, "I can do a bit of impersonations myself," and he goes, "Give fab, Beatles." I like Ringo, give fab, and George is a lot of bit like Cagney. It's like brilliant lines like that. Love that.
Yeah, but I loved both of the films and that, and
I do too.
It's a shame we didn't get a third one.
Magical Mystery Tour in a way.
It's interesting, isn't it? Peter Jackson doing Get Back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What?
I was just going to say, Peter Jackson doesn't Get Back. And at one point, the Beatles were linked with doing a film, of Lord of the Rings, weren't they?
Oh, yeah, that's interesting. Okay, speaking of Christmas and the Beatles, so we talked about Magical Mystery Tour, which I wanted to say real
Still there,
quick.
Amy?
Those scenes, like the Fool on the Hill, I think inspired so much of Yellow Submarine, the animation in Yellow Submarine. So Magical Mystery Tour was like a huge, to me, inspiration for that, the animation. Okay, so the Beatles Christmas records, you've heard those, right? The fan records?
Yeah. Are you a fan of them? Yeah.
Yeah, I love those. I heard those a long time ago, and because somebody used to play old Beatles things. Sorry, somebody said you're tweaking. Not you, the internet. But
I thought you said it. I thought you said it was twerking. I was thinking, what? What the fuck does that mean? Yeah, it's tweaking. Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, it's the area, the snow. Yeah.
Anyway, the Beatles
sorry, Amy. What were you saying?
Well, they were commissioned not commissioned, to do it for their fan club. So only the fans got those every year. They would actually get literal 45s of the Beatles doing these crazy, like, kind of like the Goon Brothers, right? The Goon Squad, the Goon Show.
Yeah, the Goon Show. Yeah, the Goon Show. Yeah.
There's a book called The Goon Squad by Jennifer Egan. Okay, The Goon Show, and that's really what that came from, in my opinion. But it was great. I love those. I thought it was just so creative and funny.
Well, they were edited by. Do you know Kenny Everett? Have you heard of Kenny Everett? He was a Liverpool-born DJ, and he was a contemporary. In fact, he was on the plane when the Beatles went to America for the first time. He was doing interviews, and he was later on he became a sketch show comedian. And he was gay. He died of AIDS, but he had a character called Cupid Stunt.
Okay, I get it.
Cupid Stunt. But anyway, but he's widely acknowledged with he got Bohemian Rhapsody to #1 because none of the DJs in Britain at the time would play it. And he kept playing it. Like, in fact, he had like an hour show, and he only played that record like for the entire hour. And Queen credited him because he was influential. They said that was the reason it got to #1. But yeah, he was like a sort of madcap, I suppose, Monty Python-esque kind of figure. And he edited all the fan club records, like the sound collages and that and whatnot. It's kind of, you're right. There's a Goon influence there, isn't it? It's like the Goon Show.
Definitely, which brings us back to
Yeah. It only does it when you talk, Jamie. Bums me because I want to hear you. What can I say? I'm really sorry. The internet maybe has got it in for me. Do you think, maybe?
Well, it's got to be the time difference and the distance, the ocean difference, and all that stuff. So, and snow.
It's probably the Titanic, actually.
So, what do you think? Okay, so I was gonna say, I'll let you talk, but real quick, we talked about who's the guy from the party?
Peter Sellers.
Because I kept saying Peter, but I was like, what's his like? Because we're talking about Peter Jackson and all these Peters. Okay, Peter Sellers. I know you've heard the "She Loves You." She loves you, Nigel. You've heard all that, right? I love you too.
Have you heard it? Have you heard Hard Day's Night? Have you heard Peter Sellers doing a Hard Day's Night as Richard Burton?
Probably. I need to go to the studio. I probably have. Yeah. Yes.
It has been a hard day's night, and I have been sleeping like a log. Yeah. That's the one. Yeah.
He cusses a lot. What's interesting in that was that on a TV show? Because he cusses throughout the entire thing. He's like, "Oh, fuck,"
Yeah, it's I think it was that's the raw edit. I think it was that someone later found, and that it was like sort of circulated on that. But I think probably it's been because you like England, like it's got this reputation of like they're okay with swearing, but back then it was like you couldn't even say like puff and stuff like that without upsetting the people and stuff like that. So it was that Coco, yeah.
Yeah, Miss Coco.
Sorry, listen, Amy. I'm gonna have to wind this up to do me. I'm gone. Sorry for shouting. She's shouting at me, Amy. I'm gonna have to wrap this up now.
I understand.
Okay, I've got to go and do my mum's tea. So,
All right. Talk
yeah,
to you later.
I'm sorry about that. But I'll speak to you. Okay, so I'll just say goodbye to everyone. And
we'll be back tomorrow.
Let's go and say, let's go. Ta-ra, lad. Just say that, good. Yeah, be back tomorrow. Yeah. Love you. Farewell. Oh, that's incredible. Julie lives. Yeah. Farewell.
All right, well, I'm still here, but I have to go. I love you too.
Love you.
All right, well, I have to go too. And thanks everyone for being here. Yes, tomorrow we're going to talk about John's death, but more than that, his life, which we pretty much, I mean, I don't think Jamie and I could ever get together and not talk about the Beatles. It's just sort of natural because we both have. And that's why we met each other, because John brought us together, and we have so many connections with that. Love you guys. You have a great Thursday, and I will talk to you later. Bye. Thanks for being here.